Welcome back, everyone. Today we're looking at a strong Barbarian build for Baldur's Gate 3. In the opening gameplay, you can see it's routinely hitting for 20 plus damage per swing, 3 times per round. And that's a lot of damage. There's a few variations that'll work for this build, whether you want to run a pure Barbarian or multi-class with a fighter, paladin, or potentially even both. Regardless of which path you choose, I recommend going to level 8 as Barbarian first before you multi-class if you choose to. This will unlock a lot of benefits for your character, such as an additional rage charge, which is a key component of the build, reckless attack, which will give you an advantage on your attacks while also doing the same for the enemy, danger sense, which is advantage on dexterity saving throws, the Berserker subclass, which will allow you to get an extra attack as a bonus action, 2 feats, an extra attack per turn from your martial class, extra movement, and feral instinct, which is improved initiative. Now this sounds like a ton of things that you might have to keep track of, but look at the number of abilities that I have to actually activate on the toolbar. It's very limited. The class itself is very simple to play, as most of the abilities are actually passives. So let's go ahead and start at level 1, and then we'll go through the level up process. Level 1, we're going to receive Rage, which is a bonus action. So we can cast this ability, move up to the target, and start attacking. And this is what we want to do, because Rage will end early if we don't either attack or take damage each turn. So we want to make sure that we have the mobility to either get to a target, or at the very least, be in range to use our ranged weapon. Class feature is simply unarmored defense. Now I'm sure there are builds that take advantage of this. Personally, I actually went with medium armor and it's worked out great. So I'm going to recommend that in this guide as well. For ability scores, we're going to put 14 into Dex to get the extra 2 armor class from the medium armor that we'll be using, as well as 16 into Strength and 16 into Con. We're going to do the Strength to increase our ability to hit as well as deal additional damage, and the Constitution is to increase our survivability. At this point, you can leave 2 stats at 10 and 1 stat at 8. Personally, I've left my Wisdom at 10, as well as my Charisma, in case I want to go into Paladin, although I don't plan on making use of any of the spells. The Paladin multiclass would simply be to have access to Divine Smite, and I've dropped the Intelligence down. You could do whatever you like here with the 3, but ultimately you have to make a choice on one of those. For proficiencies, you have limited options. In this situation, I went with Perception. I feel like this is just useful for all characters to have, as well as Intimidation. I just don't have any characters with this on my current playthrough. At level 2, we get a passive, which is Danger Sense, giving us advantage on dexterity saving throws against traps, spells, and surfaces, as well as an action, Reckless Attack. Until our next turn, we have advantage on attack rolls, and this will count for all of the attack rolls on that turn, but enemies also have advantage against us. So this is something we'll want to use situationally when we feel the time is right, so that we aren't essentially just mowed down by the enemies on the receiving end of the damage. At level 3, we'll get the ability to pick our subclass. We're going to go with the Berserker option, and this is going to give us Frenzy, which is basically going to turn our Rage into Frenzy. This is going to open up 2 new abilities, Frenzied Strike and Enraged Throw. Frenzied Strike allows us as a bonus action to make an additional melee attack. So again, we're getting an extra attack already, and we will also be able to stack this with the extra attack we get at level 5. Enraged Throw, pick up an item or creature and throw it at a target, dealing additional damage and knocking it prone. Again, while we're frenzied now that we've gotten the subclass, we need to make sure that we either attack an enemy or take damage every turn, and if we're out of range of them, we want to either utilize a ranged weapon or the throw. For our race, if you happen to be doing this on Karlach, you'll get the Legacy of Avernus Searing Smite, and this is actually nice because it's going to add a fire component to our weapon attack, and you'll see when we go through the equipment here that I've actually stacked multiple sources of damage, which helps me to consistently do damage to the target, regardless of what they have for resistances, which become more of a problem or more of a factor as you get further in the game. At level 4, we get access to our first feat. Now, to me, the choice is really between either taking ability improvement to bump your strength to 18 or going with Great Weapon Master. What this will allow you to do is essentially kill a target and then make another melee attack, again giving us more attacks. However, attacks with heavy melee weapons you're proficient with can deal an additional 10 damage at the cost of a -5 attack roll penalty. For most situations, I actually prefer to take ability improvement at level 4, and this is just going to, instead of giving us a trade-off of potentially missing the target for increased damage, we're going to get additional chances to hit through the strength modifier, and I find that this is more consistent, and as you saw in the intro, the extra damage isn't really needed the majority of the time. So I just find overall, consistent damage leads to a high output for this character, but you certainly could take Great Weapon Master, whether you want to do that at level 4 or potentially even level 8. At level 5, we'll now get an extra attack as well, and this will be a main action after we perform our first attack, so we could use a regular attack, our extra attack, as well as our frenzy strike, all in the same turn. If you happen to be playing Great Weapon Master, you can then follow up any kills or critical hits with extra attacks as well. We're also going to get fast movement, which is going to increase our movement speed while not wearing heavy armor, and again, we're going to make sure that we're wearing medium armor in this build. If you happen to be on Karlach, you'll receive Legacy of Avernus, Branding Smite, which now has the ability to add some additional radiant damage to your attacks as well. Now, between these two smites that you have so far, you can use these once per long rest, and again, this is going to consume an action and a bonus action, so you want to use these in the right situations and make sure that the target you're using these on isn't resistant to the damage that you're adding to your ability. Level 6, we're going to get an additional rage charge, and this is one of the reasons that I recommend pushing up to level 8 before multiclassing if you choose to go the multiclass route. However, you can certainly stay a barbarian all the way up to level 12 if you prefer. Subclass feature, Mindless Rage. Your rage becomes all-consuming, repelling outside influence. Basically, this means you can't be charmed or frightened, and calm emotions no longer ends your rage. Level 7, we'll gain Feral Instinct. We've honed our instincts to the utmost degree. You gain a +3 bonus to initiative and can't be surprised. This is incredibly nice. This allows us to help ensure that we get the ability to act sooner into combat, and we aren't at the whim of the enemy to unload on us before we get our cooldowns off and start thinning their ranks. At level 8, you'll gain another feat, and same situation as level 4. You could take ability improvement even if you've already taken it. That would then give you a 20 strength, or you could now choose to take Great Weapon Master, which will allow you to have less chance to hit, however potentially more damage. I find that ability improvement will give you a more consistent playthrough, and Great Weapon Master leads to more exciting, larger hits. After level 8, you have the choice to continue in just Barbarian if you're enjoying it, or you could always multi-class. You could put 2 levels into Fighter to unlock Action Surge, or you could even put 4 levels into Fighter to also get a 3rd feat. You could also put 2 levels into Paladin. This will give you Divine Smite, and again, you could put 4 levels into Paladin to unlock the feat in that manner as well. Lastly, you could put 2 levels into Fighter for Action Surge, as well as 2 levels into Paladin to get both the Action Surge and Divine Smite capabilities. Option is pretty open. In fact, there's even some options to go into Rogue as well. Let's take a look at some of the powerful equipment I've managed to find for this character so far. Now at this point, I'm using the Dark Justiciar helmet, and this gives me +1 bonus to saving throws against spells, as well as +1 to Constitution saving throws. For a long time, I used Haste Helm, which would give momentum at the start of combat. Momentum essentially gives you increased movement. However, what I've found recently, since leveling up the Barbarian and getting access to increased movement through the class and subclass itself, I haven't needed the Haste Helm, so I've just added some additional saving throws rather than nothing. For the armor, I'm running the Dark Justiciar half-plate. The first part of this, the wearer has advantage on stealth checks. I don't really care about that on this particular character. However, advantage on Constitution saving throw checks, as well as Shar's Aegis. And Shar's Aegis provides a +2 armor class, and this lasts until long rest. So you can basically cast this at the start of every day and keep that active the whole time. The only time it gets removed is if you actually swap the armor off, so make sure that you don't do that. The Dark Justiciar Gauntlets, this is going to have your weapon attacks deal an additional 1 to 4 necrotic damage, as well as +1 to strength saving throws. Now, weapon attacks dealing additional damage, this is what we're doing every single turn, right? In fact, it's all we do with this character. So we're just maximizing the benefit of this, and that's why I put this on this character. For boots, I've got the Linebreaker boots, Adrenaline Rush. Once per turn when you dash, you gain Wrath for 2 turns. I don't dash very often. However, if the situation arises, this at least gives me something to do, and I didn't have a pair of better boots at this time for this character. For the neck, using the Amulet of Misty Step, and I like Misty Step in this case. Dash requires an action, and Misty Step is actually a bonus action. So having the ability to cast Misty Step here allows me to use that as a bonus action and potentially follow up with my regular attack as the action. It just adds kind of some versatility to the build. The Callous Glow Ring, Weird deals an additional 2 points of damage against creatures that are illuminated, and I have this on because I'm using the Moonlight Glaive, and this is going to cause objects to shine with a glowing light within a radius of 6 meters, which is going to be every time I'm in melee range, so I'm taking advantage of that additional damage. On top of that, this is just a strong 2-handed weapon with a high damage capability. The second ring I'm using is Caustic Band, which again, weapon attacks are also going to deal 2 acid damage, so you can see that I'm just really focusing in and going all out on dealing additional weapon damage with this character because that's all we're trying to do with this character. The ranged weapon is just the one I have with best access to at this point. There's really nothing that synergizes with the build particularly, so you can use whichever one you have in that slot. And again, it's always more beneficial to use your main attack, and if you're playing the Berserker build, potentially even using the throw is going to be better off than your ranged weapon. So throw a Barbarian in your party, take it up to level 8, and then decide what you'd like to do from there. As always, thanks for taking the time to watch, and have a great day.